Hey guys, welcome back. Part number 5 of my 32nd scale EA-18G Growler build. This part we're going to work on the tails, pretty straightforward, the jamming pods, and fuel tanks and the pylons. Alright, so moving along here, we're going to carry on and we're going to start with the tails. So, left one I've done already. No problem at all. Again, the size of these things. And now we're going to do the right side. So, quick tip for these. I write in Sharpie on the tabs which one's left and right for all this kind of stuff. So we're not fumbling and figuring out later on. It makes things a whole lot easier. So did that. Sorry, it's a little bit needs cleaning up. And this is super easy. It's just 4 parts. Another tip we'll do is I highlight R is the clear parts, so I highlight those. So at the very end, when I come back through these instructions, I know to add them because obviously I'm not going to add the clear lights right now. We're going to do these at the very end, yeah, because otherwise get ruined with the paintwork and priming and stuff. So clear parts at the end. So basically, all we got is 4 parts. So super easy, really. Just I think I've cleaned this up already. Yeah, and use a couple of my close pegs. And the same deal with these. Again, one thing you should note too is the ways these attach to the sprue gates. There's nubs on the inside here, so make sure you take your sprue cutters and clip inside and sand it down so you get a nice smooth finish. Otherwise, you're going to have a gap when you try to put the 2 halves together. Again, using my Tamiya cement, not the extra thin. Most of the time I use this stuff now. I think it's way better than the extra thin. Extra thin's great for smaller parts and welding stuff together and stuff, but this just works great for these kind of large parts like this. Take my 2 halves, hear it click, kind of into slot. One there, one there, and one there. Actually, if I move it that way, we can probably go ahead and add the tail already, the rudder already. Simple enough, just go and put a bunch of glue down the middle. And we got it slightly, make sure I got the same as this side, slightly into the right. Just ever so slightly. I like slight inflections and stuff, or on when I'm doing like these kind of things, just as a little visual interest rather than having things flat and straight like the flaps and stuff, just like little tweaks like that, just angles and stuff. And that is it. So that's as easy as that. So that is the tails done. Alright, so let's talk jamming pods and fuel tanks. So here's our jet, and how we're going to do it, we're going to do the jamming pod, the small jamming pod in the center. We're going to do 2 fuel tanks, 2 large jamming pods, and then 2 HARM missiles, which is the AGM-88, I believe. So that's the order we're going to do it in. There's a lot of plastic, there's going to be a lot of painting. So we're going to paint all this stuff separately. Going back a couple of pages here. None of this is rocket science, it's just 2 pieces for each pod, and the fan thing goes in the front. That's pretty much fuel tank, just 2 pieces. I mean, we're going to go to town with some pre-shading and post-shading and stuff to really break this up so it doesn't look like a toy. Also look at some pictures on the side here. I'll show you kind of one of these fuel tanks. You see there's like these 3 kind of squares. These front and back squares are always a slightly different grey to the rest. So we'll make sure we paint that and mask it and stuff as well. So what we got going on here is, again, here's a bigger fuel pods. Let me move this out of the way. The bigger jamming pods, and just 2 halves. You see how I clip them away, and it's all like messy still. See where I cut them off the sprue gate? Don't sand them because they don't foul the fit. Don't sand them till you glue it together and then sand it. Because if you sand them now, if you haven't got it sanded perfectly straight, you can create a divot or like a gap, and you have to do some filling and stuff. So if you just glue that thing together like that, real good, and then once it's dry, sand off that, you'll be good to go. So each of these bigger pods is held with one of these large pylons. Again, 2-piece, same color as the jamming pod, I believe. So we can just build them all together. So we'll glue these together. We'll glue that together and tidy all up seams and stuff, and then that just slots in like that. I'm not going to I'm stuttering. I'm not going to worry about magnets on this one. I'm just going to just glue it in place, glue it in nice and secure, and then we can paint all that off separately. At the very end of the aircraft, we can just slot those two and glue it into the holes which are provided underneath the wing. So super easy, right? So we've got two of those guys. That's a pylon for that one. I'm going to talk about the small jamming pod in a minute because I've got some issues with that one. Fuel tanks, you get 3 in a set. I'm just going with 2, like I said, 1 on each wing, not a center tank. So again, just 2 piece. Not going to sand anything yet. I'm going to glue it and then sand all those little bits and bobs and get rid of the seam lines. And it has exactly the same pylon as the large jamming pods. So I think it's part M5 and M6. Again, 2 parts, and it will fit in like that. So what we'll do once again is we'll glue all that together in 1 piece and treat this as a sub-assembly. And just the size of this thing, this is about the size of a 72nd scale aircraft, so it gives you an idea of the scale on this guy. How big is this? This is about 6.5 inches long, which is in centimeters 17. Yeah, so definitely go to town with some weathering, some effects and stuff, and some oil, weathering, all kinds of stuff to make it pop, because if we just spray that, just light goes grey, so it'll look very toy-like. So that's your fuel tank. One for the other side is going to be exactly the same. Oh, yeah, it's going to do it again, same pylon. So that's those 4, no problem at all. Now this guy, so this has a sensor. This is a sensor pod. It's slightly smaller, as you can see. Now I already glued this sensor pylon together. Just glued it together. It needs to be tidied up and stuff. And I marked front. So I know which way's the front. So these 2 large parts fit into the fuselage, and it faces that way forward, nose and tail. And I know that by looking at some pictures and reference pictures online too. So it goes that way around. You got the holes, no problem at all. And here's a pod, but guess what? There's no holes in the pod. So there's 2 ways. You just cut those off and just super glue it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill it, drill some holes in here. Once this, I'll glue it together, drill some holes, and then so we can stick this in like that. So positioning wise, I think actually, whoop, I got it the wrong way around. I look at a bunch of reference pictures. There's all different kinds of pods and stuff, but I believe, see it's diagonal. The top part of that is almost flush with the line, the first square on the side. So you see that line going up? That's almost flush with that, just a little bit behind it possibly. But that's the kind of position it should be. So what I did was I just added a little bit of paint on the bottom of these. I actually used my Posca pen, just scribbled some paint on the bottom, and immediately before it dried, turned it upside down and dabbed it where it needed to be, pulled it off, and left me a mark where I know where to drill. So then I just came back with another pen and just drew a line to make it more pronounced, so I know exactly where to drill my holes. I'm also going to glue this together first, and then we'll drill those 2 holes, and then we can glue this guy in, and it should be in a good spot. So again, not sure why no holes in this. Must be a manufacturing defect or fault, I guess. But again, it should be like that, like that. And what I did too is I checked against the fuselage, made sure this didn't overlap too much into nose gear and kind of impede anything, and it does seem to fit okay. So yeah, like that. So that's how we're going to do it. That's the game plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start gluing all these together. It's got lots of seam lines to take care of and sanding and stuff. Although it's not really much detail on these, just one little panel line, and that's pretty much it. Cool. So let me work on those, and we'll come back and we'll see where we're at. Alright, so from all those different pieces, we're now down to 5 sub-assemblies, 3 pods and 2 fuel tanks. Shouldn't be any problems at all here. I did notice with these guys, there were gnarly seam lines in the back, big gaps, so I just got a bit of plastic card and cut a square and just glued it in the back here. So it's obviously white, but once we paint all this up, you're not going to notice it. So I got that gnarly line in the back. Yeah, and these look pretty good too. So really a 4-step way of doing this. So the little kind of attachment points we have left over, I took a medium sanding stick and just sanded those down to get rid of them. And then I came back to do some scraping. So the scraper doesn't like those kind of attachment points, the jumps. It likes more of a smoother area. And this is Citadel's the Game Workshop scraping tool for like Warhammer and stuff, but I really like this one. It works really good. So you just run it across backwards and forwards a few times, smooth it all out and get a little seam line, and then came back then with a fine sanding stick, just a bit cut down, and just kind of sand that down, and then finally came back with a sponge, like a smaller grit, a really worn sponge, and just sanded it back just like that to get it finished. Then if you don't have one of these, I highly suggest you get one. I'm looking around. For mine, it's the anti-static brush from Tamiya. Just give it a quick brush because it's all dusty, get all dust, and we were ready to go. So that's all done. So they're now ready for priming. So we've got a few friends from older episodes I'm going to bring back, and we can prime at the same time where we've got painting the gun. So if you remember these back from, I think part 2 or 3, when we did the wings, these are the pods at the end. These can be white, but we can prime these at the same time. And also we can prime the radar, and we have that panel from the nose gear. Remember we did the nose gear? So we did the inside, we just got to paint the outside, prime it, and then paint it with the light ghost grey, which is the same as the pods and the fuel tank. So first step, priming. We're going to prime with, as always, Mr. Surfacer 1500 black. Everything's going to be primed, and then once that's dried, I'll come back with some white, and then do just patchy, do a shallow coat to create some pre-shading. You'll see in a minute when I come back. So I'm going to head to the spray booth, get those painted, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I started doing the HARM missiles. A little bit gnarly, to be honest with you, but I managed to sand it back. I'm not going to rescribe the details. Sorry. But there's that stupid line down the back. It's a huge seam line. So this is how I think I fixed it. I took out my Display circle cutter, handy dandy cutting tool, but my thinnest plastic card is 1/2 mil, and it just won't cut through that. It's more for like masking tape. So remember the, we don't remember, but I have a aftermarket Quick Boost, the control stick for cockpit. So I got a package, and this is plastic, real thin plastic. So I just put it down, cut out my circle, measured it on my circle right, and then tied up this plastic. And you can see, I actually glued it extra thin in the back there, a very thin piece of plastic. So I'm hoping when we spray over that, it's going to cover that. Obviously, it covers that line, so you wouldn't have that stupid seam line in the back. So, I just came up with that. Hopefully it works. I mean, it should do. It's just thin plastic, right? Paint over it, and it'll be flat. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so we're done. So primed it and came back with some Tamiya white, just usual white acrylic, and just sprayed in randomly just to create that kind of shadow effect, which creates nice like pre-shading. So that guy's done. Well, all the pods are done. Oh, I'm just using these clothes packs to hold them. And then fuel tanks are done. Again, just see, it just breaks up the black and just creates like a nice, create a nice effect once you spray on the blue on top. And well, the grey, bluey grey, should I say. And then I did all the rest, and then let me show you. Remember I did with these HARMs, I put a little plastic on the back. Worked out perfectly, look, no seam line. That little bit of plastic on the back, painted over it, no problem at all, and it looking good as well. These guys will be painted white. So for this build, I'm going to use, for light ghost grey, I'm going to use Mr. Hobby 308, I believe it is. I like this stuff. This is a lacquer version. It's very comparable to like an MRP or whatever. It's just already thinned down, but it's going to be a really nice color. So do like using my lacquers, and I will be using it on these. One of the fuel tanks, I think I'm going to paint a slightly different shade, just to kind of break it up, so more visual appeals. I might do like a lighter kind of gray, but we'll see when we get there. But this is going to be the first stage. We're going to do plenty of weathering on these things and stuff, but we're going to start first again with the light ghost gray on all of this stuff. Like I say, bar one fuel tank, because I want to just paint that a slightly different color. Okay, quick little update. So these guys are painted, and as you can see, I've painted one side of those kind of block things, and still only paint the other side. The reason I did one side, 2 reasons. Firstly, it's because I don't want 2 wet sides, and I guess mainly grew up in Yorkshire and I'm tight. I don't want to waste masking tape, so I can reuse it on the other side. So this one needs a little bit of touch up, but I'm really looking good now. It's kind of definitely, picks it out, gives some visual interest to those guys. Still needs to wash and weathering, all that kind of stuff. So I did use, I used XF 53 neutral gray for these guys, which looks like a pretty good color. Now don't trust Trumpeter. This is, you're gonna laugh at this one. So it says use medium gunship gray H305, which Tamiya is XF58. Well, guess what? XF58 is olive green. So make sure you check your color references first, for sure. But yeah, you don't want to paint that green. So these 3 little pods, well, half done. Got to do the other side. Coming on nicely, and we did the fuel tanks. And hopefully, when the camera picks it up, you can see how nice and visually interesting and grimy and stuff they're looking. So how did I do that? Well, we painted light ghost gray first, and then I'm looking around see if I can find it. Here it is. I used my Ushi van der Rosten splatter template. Now, I wouldn't buy these ones. They're really good, but here's why I wouldn't buy them. Because they're metal, photo etch, and they're kind of hard to go around, bend. AK Interactive do like a plasticky kind of vinyl kind of one. It looks way better. It's bigger and just wraps around real easier. So if you're going to buy one, buy that one instead. And yeah, so you got different sizes. This is the larger size. And what I basically did was I came first with light gray all over, just to pick it out. Like a light, I think it's XF19, a little bit of white added. But with this, little is better. Don't go crazy. Just a very little light spray, just all around, and then finally came back with what I love to do with the these tanks for like a dirty kind of rusty, almost grimy look is red brown. I have to use LP57 because I don't have the acrylic, but they have the acrylic version too. But kind of reddy brown color, and then again the template, just a couple of areas. Again, really easy and light. Just a very quick spray. Because little is more in this kind of guy, and I just sprayed the I like to spray the nose just a little bit too, because these guys get really beaten up. So we're gonna come back with oil paints and washes, all kinds of stuff too. But so that's basically what it is. So the red brown just for the tanks only, the light gray used for the pylons too to break it up, but they're looking kind of cool. And this is kind of where your model kind of sets it up from the basic stuff. Because if you just painted that gray, fair enough, it's going to look good, but I mean, it just might look like a toy. This big thing just gray. So this is where you break it up, and different colors and texture, different methods and different colors and stuff, just to kind of really break it up and give some visual interest and give it a realistic kind of look. I've been down to Oceania, where all these Hornets are down there, up for an air show, about 2 to 3 years ago now, and they had tons of these fuel tanks just stacked up in crates or on the side there, outside the pan, and they were just like beaten up so badly. They look crap. So these things, for sure, I'm definitely beat these guys up. Definitely come back with definitely more weathering and stuff later on. But that's kind of where we're at. So next up for me really is to paint the other side with these grey squares, which is the world's easiest masking job, because all it is one across the top, one across the bottom, and down the sides. Super easy. That is it. So let me go ahead and finish up painting this on the side. I'm also painting the HARM missiles white, and the pods as well. I can't remember which they are, but the pods on the end of the wings white too. With the trick with white is just light dusting coats. This has had 2 coats now. Just build it up. So I done 1 thin coat to get 2nd coat, and now I'll be ready for a 3rd coat where it's a little bit thicker and to get that nice white finish. So again, going over the black primer just really makes the white a little bit more kind of solid looking, I think. So yeah, we're in good shape. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start paint the rest of these pods, and we'll come back. All right, so painted up and also added the decals. So one thing I should note is, remember I just said how easy it is to mask it up. Typical me, I screwed it up. I painted the center. I forgot to mask a bit, so I had to correct it. So just grey on the two outer kind of boxes. So I fixed it all. Tons of decals on these little guys, but decals went down beautifully. Nice decals in this set. And so the pods are done. And the only decals you have for the tanks are, because this is like a CAG kind of bird, I guess, you got the Shadow Hawks. You get 2 sets of these. You gotta be careful which, left and right. So you get 2 sets, but I don't want to put them on both tanks because I want a little bit visual interest. I think normally this is in the center tank, to be honest with you, but would you go into 2 wing tanks? So I just put Shadowhawks on one of these and then leave the other one plain. So that's it pretty much for decals and paint. Again, you can kind of see where I did, with the grime and stuff with the red brown, looking really good. So next up, I'm going to seal these decals in with a gloss coat, and then we'll come back and we can add a panel line wash. All right, so we're done with the pods, the HARM missiles, the fuel tanks, all that kind of stuff. And it's nice to get out of the way early because there's a lot of work went into this, and it's nice to get it done. So then when we get back to building the fuselage and get that painted, these is ready to go. Glue on, we're done. We don't have to wait to the very end of the build when you're kind of losing the mojo, and then you have to then spend 20, 30 hours building a bunch of ordnance, which I don't like. So got it done. Let me kind of show you where we're at. So got the pods. So we've got 2 of those, and we have the little guy, and I did correct the painting before I screwed up the masking. So that's done.
They're looking really good. We've got, so I was going through my drawer right here with tools, and at the back I found this, which is a 72nd scale pod. So there you go, there's a difference in size. So 72nd to 32nd scale, if you're wondering. So that's a little jamming pod, that's a big jamming pod. So that's those guys. We got our HARM missiles on the pylons. Actually, such a good fit, they're not even glued on the pylons, they click in. And decaled and ready to go. Then these two little guys got pods at the end of the wings. And finally, the fuel tanks. And so, I'm kind of going to look close here so you can see it. So you see how I weathered them up? I'm not going to go into the weathering on these and how I did it, because I'm going to do the exact same thing on the aircraft in a couple more weeks. So when we do actually main fuselage, the techniques and colors I use are going to be exactly the same. So just do it one time rather than repeating myself. So came with a dark dirt wash and some neat oils to kind of create some grime and some visual interest on that one. And this one, the Shadow Hawks. This one was one of those like Bob Ross happy little accidents. I sprayed it and I propped it against, like in my air booth, against the filter, and a bunch of dust came out and went on the end. And I sanded a little bit off, but actually created a little bit of grime and stuff at the end, so it actually worked out pretty good. But that's the one tank I've done with the Shadow Hawks on. I didn't do it with this one. I just want to come to something a little bit different to kind of break it up. But there are tanks. And that is it. Quite a lot of work went onto those parts, as you saw. It's basically, as always, treat the sub-assemblies or own little models in itself. And then at the very end, I'm going to put them in a box. At the very end, we just come back, bring it all together, glue it all on, and we're finished. So again, like to do it early in the build. And that is pretty much it. So thank you for watching. As always, hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.